Strongly looks like the Russians had a pretty hard time maneuvering on the Ukrainian trenches. Russian fire team who took position behind the destroyed armored vehicle, however, managed to set up a proper base of fire to engage the Ukrainians in their trench. In an attempt to increase the pressure on the Ukrainian defenders, a BMP platoon led by a tank launched an attack and advanced in a column formation towards the grey zone.
Hey troops, welcome back to the channel. My name's Ryan. Today we're going to be reacting to Ukraine war. Ukraine Special Forces combat heavy Russian wave assaults. This is a video by Warleaks, I believe it is, so link will be in the description for the original content. I believe it's viewer friendly because he actually mentions it in his video, so hopefully we are allowed to react to this. Let's get into it, troops. Like, share, subscribe, you know what to do. Let's get into it, man.
Fighting documented in the corridor between the towns of Ivanivka and Yahitny. There, the Ukrainian Kroken regiment that is classified as special operations.
Right, who we got? 26th Tank Regiment.
Force defended the town from heavy Russian assaults conducted by mechanized units of the Russian 26th Tank Regiment.
Right, so the 26th Tank Regiment is the Russians.
If we take a look at the bigger picture, however, we can see that most likely more units were involved in the battle. Additionally, the Ukrainian troops had fire support in the form of artillery, mortars and the MLRS HIMARS rocket system that reportedly struck targets in the...
Right, so Ukraine, to their benefit, have got, you know, mortars. Mortars can be maneuverable pretty quick. Good for the infanteers. Artillery, you know, for the guys in the rear, getting heavy fire down on forward positions. MLRS, even better than artillery because they can be pretty maneuverable on the battlefield, in and out kind of thing.
Region. Helmet cam and drone footage captured pretty well how this battle actually was fought on the ground. The Ukrainian operators made use of interesting assets here.
Ooh, Black Hornet PD 100. Looks... well, I don't know if I can speak too much about that, but it looks familiar, put it that way.
Including a Black Hornet PD-100. A micro UAV primarily used for reconnaissance purposes. Due to its small size, it is very useful at close ranges, which typically refer to distances between 1 and 2 kilometers in this context. Most of the engagements took place in the grey zone between the Russian and Ukrainian held territory, where the first stage of the battle was most likely documented in this area. Ukrainian soldiers had to work through the tree line that was separating the grey zone. A pair of Russians managed to man a dugout, but the Ukrainians cleared it immediately. This was only the first wave of attacks the fighters had to face. Meanwhile, a Russian T-72B3 was sent in to shell the tree line and took a direct hit. The tank was most likely sent in to relieve pressure from the Russian foot soldiers in the tree line.
Right, so this is pretty dangerous stuff for the Ukrainians. When we're looking at the actual ground in detail, trench warfare, fighting in woods and forests, pretty difficult stuff, okay, especially when you've got a tank on the other side of there, or a tank, or a number of tanks, okay? So pretty difficult situation indeed. That's why I believe they've got the Special Operations Force Ukraine guys on the ground to be able to do I don't want to say a better job, but they're more skilled, put it that way.
From the cover of their trenches, the Ukrainians continued to engage Russian troops with small arms fire and disposable rocket launchers. From the videos released from this battle, it strongly looks like the Russians had a pretty hard time maneuvering on the Ukrainian trenches. Russian fire team who took position behind the destroyed armored vehicle, however, managed to set up a proper base of fire to engage the Ukrainians in their trench. In an attempt to increase the pressure on the Ukrainian defenders, a BMP platoon led by a tank launched an attack and advanced in a column formation towards the grey zone.
So what could happen here is potentially some form of ambush by the Ukrainians. But if they did do that, it's pretty dangerous stuff, okay? It means getting out of their fortified position, or semi-fortified, that being a trench, and trying to strike them from a different position, okay? Pretty difficult, dangerous.
This and the proper base of fire established by the Russian fire team gave the Russians enough room to breathe and maneuver closer to the Ukrainian positions. In fact, they managed to push up so close that they came into Ukrainian hand grenade range.
Wow.
Still, the Russians did not manage to gain fire superiority, and the Ukrainians continued their defense without visible hardships. With this I mean that they mostly stayed in control of the situation and maintained their freedom of action pretty well. The fact that the advancing Russian BMP column turned around and discontinued their push, at least from this avenue of approach, was also favorable for them. Here we see Kroken operators making use of another interesting asset to counter the Russian offensive actions. A 120mm Scorpion mobile mortar system. This system played a crucial role in repelling the attacks on Ivanivka. To attack and disrupt armored Russian elements a little bit further back in the rear, the Ukrainians deployed a huge number of FPV drones, striking numerous tanks, infantry fighting vehicles and trucks. This war has shown so far that the effective engagement range of a simple infantry platoon can easily be increased of up to 10 kilometers and more when they have a drone operator in their ranks.
Wow.
Cutting down the
We were talking about this well before the war took place, how important the role of drones are going to be in the future of warfare. We're seeing that right now. It's changed the battlefield forever.
flow of armored enemy elements in the rear of the front line by using FPV drones took away a lot of potential pressure from the soldiers in the trenches. These strikes actually thinned out the local temporary offensive potential of the attackers, and the very same approach has already been proven on the Zaporizhia front and was one of the reasons for the slow progress made by Ukrainian armored formations. Again, the short reminder that this is a cut version of this video. You can find the full breakdown with a lot of left out scenes on my private Telegram channel. For $5 a month you get access to it. There I can show and talk about they were able to launch a small local counterattack with a single T-80 tank that drove head onto the tree line and fired right into it multiple times. A Ukrainian soldier was following the tank from a safe distance and filmed from the ground. The tank also had a camera mounted on top of its turret.
Wow, so that tank is literally unleashing hell within 50 to 100 meters away. It also puts it at quite a dangerous distance for, you know, potential attacks to counteract that movement as well. So dangerous on both sides.
Here the location. The next day the tank conducted an attack again and targeted a group of Russian infantry. The Ukrainians also used M777 howitzers to target the incoming Russian waves.
Big.
In the end, cluster munitions were used against the remaining Russian elements and ended the battle.
Look at the ground. Absolutely scattered with the remnants of bomb shells. Crater after crater everywhere.
A Russian BMD-2 with a group of infantry
We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 people on that BMD-2.
on top of it. The vehicle is linking up with a forward element already waiting for them in a field. A soldier jumps and falls. The soldiers are trying to draw the attention of the BMD crew to something as one of them begins to approach the vehicle. Another soldier...
This is pretty dangerous for them as well. Obviously stopping in that, it's a target. I mean, if you think about the footage that's been taking place, the fact that they've been able to get footage, aerial footage of this vehicle tells you that they're being watched all the time.
Jumps and falls as well. The men seem to be in a hurry and appear visibly nervous. One soldier tries to mount the BMD again, but it begins to move and he is the third to fall down that day. At least his comrade checked on him, which the other two cannot claim for themselves. The BMD pushes further up. Seems like the forward element encountered 2 Ukrainian positions ahead, perhaps even took fire from there, and is now relying intel about the direction to the BMD crew. This would explain why they seem to be in a hurry since they were actually standing on hot ground.
Wow.
It appears they decided to charge towards the positions, and the soldiers mount the BMD once again.
Wow. So they know that they're actually getting in the thick of it, going to be getting involved in a potential firefight very, very soon. It's all nerve-wracking stuff, guys.
Still in a hurry, however, the BMD begins to drive and leaves 2 soldiers behind who were not able to climb onto the vehicle in time. The rest of the soldiers gets dropped off closer to the Ukrainian positions, and for the 4th time a Russian soldier falls. Leaving the infantry behind, the BMD-2 charges head-on towards the Ukrainian positions. Suddenly, the vehicle gets struck by an anti-tank guided missile. Shortly after, a second...
Right, so... little bit of reference then, this is mainly for YouTube. A lot of the horrible stuff has been cut out of this for obvious reasons, so it should have no issues really.
Anti-tank guided missile strikes. The direction the missiles were coming from nearly exactly matched the one given by the Russian soldier in the beginning of the clip. This basically means that the BMD crew ignored all the warnings and drove head-on into the crossfire. Without transport, the Russian soldiers are left on their own in the open. In the Donetsk region, Russian forces continued their offensive operations towards Avdiivka, and heavy fighting has been documented especially from the northern part of the town. According to data from the Deep State map, 3 Russian motor rifle brigades and 1 rifle battalion are involved in the fighting with 3 main directions of assaults. Most of the engagements took place in these 3 areas here. Russian forces managed to occupy parts of this height after taking heavy losses. Drone footage from the Russian 114th Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade shows the Russian flag waving on the height after Ukrainian forces were partially driven out of their positions and had to fall back. The Ukrainians on their side retaliated for the partial loss by hitting the flag with an FPV drone. It seems that, according to the deep state map, Russia by now has gained total control over the height as I was working on this update. As this video shows, M2 Bradleys from the 47th Mechanized Brigade were also sent into the battle to reinforce the north. At first, this video has wrongly been attributed to the Southern Front by many people, but the 47th Mechanized Brigade was in fact just recently relocated to the Avdiivka front to help holding the lines there.
Right, so we got a guy on the ground, mask wearing, face covered, obviously within that Avdiivka area where the battle has been taking place.
In addition, Leopard 2 tanks also entered the battle, and the 114th Motorized Brigade already claimed to have destroyed one. They released drone footage showing a Ukrainian Leopard 2 that got abandoned by its crew and is later seen burning. The hit on the vehicle, however, was not shown. The quality of the drone footage is, as always, pretty bad, and I cannot really tell what took out the vehicle. Besides the capture of the hill, this was the most significant visible success Russia has made so far. In addition, it was claimed that also at least one Bradley was destroyed, but video footage confirming this is missing right now. Despite these advancements, Russia's
I got a convoy here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Got a good, dozen vehicles here.
Still throws large amounts of manpower and equipment into the battle, and a number of Ukrainian drone videos shows Russian armored formations trying to break through Ukrainian defensive lines to encircle the town. This video shows a Russian BTR column led by 2 tanks coming under heavy fire during one of these pushes.
So in order to push through those defensive lines and positions, what the Russians seem to be doing is obviously using a lot of vehicles at once, fronted up by 2 pretty sturdy tanks and mechanized infanteers at the rear. It's quite basic in terms of the tactics being used, World War II-ish type stuff. We have seen Russia using a lot of old school tactics though, and if in doubt, just try and push and break through.
Unable to break through, the Russian column,
I was just about to say, the chances of being successful with that is quite limited.
Had to retreat, and the infantry abandoned their BTRs to flee on foot back towards the Russian line.
Wow, so they've abandoned these vehicles. We've heard that as well, time and time again. The Russians abandoning their vehicles, and these vehicles actually getting recycled by the Ukrainians and then adopted by their own people, put back into the front lines and then used against the Russians. Not really the greatest tactics to use.
This footage was recorded near the village of Krasnohorivka, and I assume the Russians were part of the 277th Rifle Battalion. Also, it seems large portions of the Russian soldiers here are actually DPR fighters. Drone footage later then showed the 3 BTRs destroyed in the same spot. According to a Ukrainian soldier serving in the 109th Territorial Defense Brigade, the current Russian assaults are the harshest this small town has ever experienced in the entire war. Wave after wave of Russian soldiers and equipment are being sent towards the Ukrainian lines, following the tiring, common Russian operational approach known since the Second World War. Quantity over quality.
Yes. Quantity over quality is something they use time and time again. Okay, just manpower, cannon fodder.
Here we see a drone hit on a Russian truck at a Dragon Teeth's anti-tank obstacle site. Disrupting Russian fortification attempts should have been one of the #1 priorities since the Kherson offensive. That, however, is only my opinion. What do you think about this? Let me know in the comments. Also, I would be glad to hear your feedback regarding this update. I tried to use more maps and animations this time to better depict the events and add more educational value. In the area of Klishchivka, the Ukrainian 5th Assault Brigade stopped a Russian mechanized assault as drone footage released by the brigade shows. From the footage it looks like that not more than a platoon-sized Russian element was involved, but under the shadow of the massive ongoing Russian offensive in Avdiivka and the recent offensive attempt in Ivanivka. It is interesting to see that Russia once again tries to expand its actions on a larger front.
Look at that battlefield there. Horrendous.
As this update has shown, however, the price for this push is high, and so far, Ukrainian troops are still holding their lines. That's it for this update, guys.
Fantastic video. Original link in the description, guys. Yeah, if you like today's reaction video to the Ukrainian Special Forces in heavy combat against the Russian wave assault, then please smash the like button, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one, troops. All right, take it easy.